One Punch Man, My Hero Academia, and Tiger and Bunny are at the forefront of anime's obsession with superheroes. You might think it's all thanks to the popularity of the MCU, but it's not so simple. Those shows are popular in part because of their special blend of Eastern and Western superheroes. So today, let's talk about what makes those shows so great and the heroes that have paved the way for their success. Title card. When One Punch Man hit the scene in 2009, it was a breath of fresh air. Saitama is a non-traditional hero whose mission is kind of just to have fun, and he's becoming an S-rank hero by accident, I guess. That and also to subvert all of the superhero tropes that we've come to expect along the way. With his laid-back attitude and humble origin story combined with a power that I can only describe as incredible, One Punch Man is the hero we did not know we needed. As anime and anime fandom grow and proliferate, it's no surprise that we're seeing new takes on familiar genres. But it's rare to see a show bring something new. In my professional opinion, we're getting closer and closer to the anime singularity every day. But what the am I talking about? Well, you see, anime is endlessly self-referential, so much so that sometimes anime from the same genre can feel kind of the same. But when you follow that self-referentiality to its logical conclusion, something kind of cool happens. Anime not only references other anime, it also satirizes it. Of course, One Punch Man isn't the first satirical anime by any stretch, but its satire feels fresh because the genre it's subverting is so ubiquitous, so unavoidable that the mere fact that One Punch Man avoids the genre's tired tropes sets it apart. Saitama's bald head, for example, is not exactly a symbol of virility in the anime space, although in real life it very much is, but you know, anime is weird. If One Punch Man's success comes in part from its ability to subvert our expectations, My Hero Academia's success might come from the simple fact that it gives viewers exactly what they want. Now, I'm not saying that My Hero doesn't tread new ground, because it does, but it also makes a compelling story from the same tropes that might feel tired or familiar in less skilled hands. Luckily, we've got Horikoshi churning out bizarrely lovable mutant humans in a world that is familiar, but also welcoming, fascinating, and complex. Many of My Hero Academia's superhero ancestors are clear. UA isn't the first school for training students with exceptional powers. X-Men. Shigaraki isn't the first villain with daddy issues, and All Might is basically an amalgamation of Superman and Goku, even though he's voiced by Vegeta. One Punch Man satire gives it an edge, but what is My Hero Academia's special sauce? If you ask me, it's just a straightforward shonen anime. That's it. A lovable underdog, a rival who's kind of also your best friend, a little bit, and an insurmountable level of training and strength. That is shonen, and that's My Hero Academia. When you mix all those influences with Japan's rich history of superheroes, that's how you make a mega popular anime superhero show. So let's take a look at the Japanese superheroes that came before Saitama and Deku. Yes, Western comic book superheroes have exploded in popularity during the last decade, thanks in part, in whole, to the MCU, but superheroes have been a staple of Japanese culture for a long time. In fact, the first comic book superhero ever debuted in Japan in 1931. His name was Ogon Bat, or Golden Bat in English. Golden Bat was created by writer Suzuki Ichiro and his artist pal Nagamatsu Takeo. Ichiro was just 16 years old when he created Golden Bat. Born before World War II, Golden Bat first debuted as a Kamishibai or paper play, which is a sort of traveling puppet show where a narrator tells a story using illustrations. Kamishibai faded in popularity after World War II, but Golden Bat managed to do the impossible and make the jump to another art form. Golden Bat became a manga, and the god of manga himself, Osamu Tezuka, even tried his hand at telling the hero's story. The character then made another leap. He got 3 live-action movies and even got an anime adaptation. The anime's 52-episode run aired between 1967 and 1968. As the first comic book superhero, Golden Bat started the trend of absolutely ridiculous origin stories. The hero hailed from the mythical city of Atlantis 10,000 years in the past, appearing in our time to battle the evil Dr. Nazo, I believe it's Natso, which I assume is singular for Nazi, whose goals threatened humanity's very existence. He clashed with the Doctor using his powers of flight, super strength, and invulnerability. How do you fight him if he's invulnerable? When Superman debuted 7 years later in 1938, he had an identical power set and hailed from a faraway world known as Krypton. In the Golden Bat's defense, he's way more terrifying looking than Superman. He looks like if Skeletor had a baby with Spawn. On the cuter end of the spectrum, there is Astro Boy. Now, you know we can't make a video without mentioning Astro Boy somewhere, even though we have. The charming little android was the next iconic superhero to come out of Japan. While Ogon Bat was created in pre-World War II Japan, Astro Boy is in every way a post-war character. Astro Boy himself is an embodiment of the war-driven tech boom. And the series' emphasis on the misuse of technology and the importance of human feeling rooted firmly in Japan's post-war ethos. The Astro Boy anime made it to the US in 1963, beginning a tradition of cross-cultural superhero exchange. Now, in the years following Astro Boy's success, Japan went full force into superheroes, and specifically ones that looked like Astro Boy, humanoids with robotic elements. Two genre-defining series sprung up in Astro Boy's wake. 8-Man by writer Kazumasa Hirai and artist Jiro Kawada in 1963, and Cyborg 009 by Shotaro Ishimori in 1964. 8-Man's story was about a detective who died on the job and then was rebuilt by a genius scientist to fight evil. Because, you know. In his new form, the detective was an incredible fighting machine, literally, but he lacked human emotion, basically a RoboCop prototype. 8-Man's anime adaptation had a 52-episode run in America on ABC in the 60s. Now, for American viewers, 8-Man was just basically another Superman. 8-Man had a lot of references that would be familiar to Superman fans, like an office job, super strength, and jumping like real high. It didn't hurt that Adventures of Superman aired on ABC just a few years prior to 8-Man. Following his work on 8-Man, Kawada started making manga about established heroes, specifically a certain Cape Crusader named Batman, and thus the real fusion of Eastern and Western heroes began. Now, the manga debuted in 1966 as part of a cross-promotion with the Adam West Batman show, which was doing extremely well in Japan. Editors from Shonen King magazine approached Kawada to adapt scripts from one of Batman's creators, Bob Kane, which he did, except he didn't. Kawada changed the stories completely to be more palatable for Japanese audiences, which is a thing that American anime audiences are familiar with. They do that a lot. He added new villains, for example. We have Kawada to thank for Lord Deathman and the Go-Go Magician, two bad guys with plenty of tokusatsu flair. Kawada also gave the dynamic duo an anime makeover. Both Batman and Robin had larger eyes and physical features. Nipples. You remember when the suit had nipples? Just imagine the nipples are really big. Overall, these changes were pretty minor, except for the nipples, but the series didn't fare well with Japanese audiences and ended after just a year. 8-Man's writer Kazumasa Hirai and artist Ryoichi Kagami later adapted another American superhero into manga form. Spider-Man ran from 1970 to 1971, and just like the Batman manga, changes were made to make the series more palatable to Japanese audiences. Peter Parker's name was changed to Yu Komori, and Aunt May, spelled M-A-Y, became Aunt May, spelled M-E-I. Either way, they were still adapting classic Spider-Man stories. As the series continued, this direct adaptation proved unpopular with audiences when the story went into tonal freefall. Ikegami began to steer away from the lighthearted comic book atmosphere in favor of a darker and more mature world. The series eventually tackled things like masturbation, to mixed results. I'm 13 and there's web, Well, hey, you tried. Ikegami cited differing cultural values as the main reason for low sales, and he also noted that the later, darker stories sold a bit better. Astro Boy's other successor, Cyborg 009, diverged from classic American superhero tropes as well. Rather than focusing on a singular titular character, the series featured an ensemble of cyborgs from various countries who had all been kidnapped and roboticized by an evil organization. Weird thing to do, but sure. After being liberated from their shared trauma, the cyborgs became a makeshift cross-cultural family. They were Japan's first superhero team. While Cyborg 009 did air globally in brief stints throughout the years, it didn't become an international hit until 2001 when the show was remade and aired dubbed on TOONAMI in North America. Despite its lack of overseas success, Cyborg 009's impact was felt much sooner than 2001 with Ishimori's next few projects. With what Ishimori learned from Cyborg 009, he birthed the Henshin genre, or transforming hero, with Kamen Rider in 1971 and Himetsu Sentai Goengar in 1975. These were heroes that began as human but often used an item or phrase or combination of both to turn superhuman. The phrase Henshin means transform and comes from these heroes' physical transformations. Himetsu Sentai Goengar eventually turned into the Super Sentai series, which later turned into what we know stateside as Power Rangers. We don't have time to cover the full impact of Sentai live-action heroes and the smaller achievements of Japanese superheroes in this video, but we can make a follow-up on Tokusatsu down the line. For now, I'll give you the broad strokes until we we get to the aughts, which brought us the MCU. Rainbow Sentai Robin premiered in 1965, long before the MCU was a glimmer in the Russo brothers' eyes. Rainbow Sentai Robin developed the 5-person team structure we've come to expect from Japanese superheroes like Sailor Moon and Power Rangers. And then there was Ultraman. Debuting in 1966, the alien hero quickly became a pop culture phenomenon in Japan, generating over $7 billion in revenue in 1966. By the 80s, he was one of the top 3 selling licensed characters in the world. But getting ahead of myself. Let's take it back to 1972, when Science Ninja Team Gatchaman became Japan's first color-coded team, a trope that remains a hallmark of Sentai, like how the Black Power Ranger is a black man. The yellow one's also Asian. It's kind of racist.
Only in America.
Only in America. 1973 brought us the character that inspired One Punch Man, Anpan Man. Anpan Man was super popular among children and even inspired a song by the K-pop group BTS. Then in 1970, Marvel tried to break into the Japanese market again with the Spider-Man live-action Sentai show, which is bad. The show had absolutely nothing in common with the American Spider-Man other than the name, costume, and powers, so it was a hit. It was also the first show where Super Sentai used giant robots, of which Spider-Man had his own, called Leopardon. From February 3rd, 1979 to January 26, 1980, another Marvel-made Sentai show, Battle Fever J, aired in Japan. It was originally planned to be a twist on Captain America called Captain Japan, the twist being that he is in Japan, but they decided to make a new show entirely. Marvel made continued attempts to appeal to the Japanese audience in the 90s, including 2 Japan-exclusive openings for the 90s X-Men cartoon. The 90s were also a great time for Japanese superheroes in the US. In 1993, Fox premiered Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and a string of Japanese-inspired live-action heroes. Then in 1997, TOONAMI launched in America. TOONAMI allowed more anime to reach the US and created a ton of cultural overlap. TOONAMI is so important and influential that I did a whole other video about it, so check that out. Watch it. In 2002, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was released in Japan. The movie was a hit in Japan, earning $56.2 million, its highest international box office, and the other 2 Sam Raimi Spider-Man films would continue this trend. Spidey's success could be thanks to his earlier inroads into Japan, but until the MCU, other superhero films didn't do nearly as well. What you doing now, Tobey Maguire? Where you at? As anime was gaining popularity in the early 2000s, Marvel introduced the Mangaverse in the US, which animated up Marvel heroes. In 2007, Witchblade, an American comic series, got adapted into an anime and a manga. Shonen Ace also began publishing Ratman, a series that combined Henshin hero concepts and traditional Western ones. Then in 2008, Marvel kicked off the MCU with Iron Man. DC made an anime Batman film called Batman: Gotham Knight, which acted as an interlude for Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. This was DC's first foray into anime since Kuwata's manga. Marvel's famous creative Stan Lee collaborated with Shaman King's author Hiroyuki Takei to make the manga Karakuri Doji Ultimo. Due to anime's explosive growth in the West over the prior decade and the proliferation of Western superhero films in Japan thanks to the Marvel movies and Nolan's Batman trilogy, both countries were more open to foreign properties than ever before. Nowadays, cultural changes are rarely made when bringing things from the East to the West or vice versa. On top of that, the advent of the internet did a lot to homogenize culture and storytelling, so audiences in the East and West were primed to accept all sorts of characters and tropes. In 2010, Marvel began collaborating with Studio Madhouse to bring various superheroes to life via anime. Unlike their previous attempts at adapting characters to Japanese culture, this one has a distinct difference. The characters, they stay the same. Madhouse doesn't change anyone's name or backstory, all they do is bring the heroes to Japan. Tony Stark is still Iron Man, but Tony's presence is inexplicably needed in Japan. Marvel and Madhouse's collaboration resulted in anime series for Iron Man, Blade, X-Men, Wolverine, and most recently in 2017, The Avengers. The crossovers, they would continue. In 2014, Marvel heroes fought the eponymous Titans from Attack on Titan in a short story featured in the Japanese magazine Brutus. The giant robot anime film Batman Ninja was essentially a Batman isekai written by the guy behind Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill. Marvel has also released a Japanese-made Guardians of the Galaxy manga with plans to launch a new Spider-Man manga later this year. Hopefully Miles Morales. And that puts us back in the era of One Punch Man and My Hero. But there's another superhero heavy hitter that we have not talked about yet. Tiger and Bunny is Japan's most popular superhero anime of the last decade. And by most popular, I mean it had the highest disc sales, even beating out One Punch Man and My Hero Academia. It performed pretty well in America, but it just didn't have the same staying power here as it did in Japan. Japan, even though it has plenty of entry points for viewers from the US. Kinda looks like IGPX. You remember that? Just without the racing. Remember that? Remember IGPX? Tiger and Bunny is set in a bustling New York-inspired metropolis with a mostly non-Japanese cast, but when you look past the surface, the show is rooted deeply in Japanese work culture. Japan is extremely work-oriented, and it's not uncommon to work more than 12 hours a day. Other Japanese norms include hanging out with office coworkers after hours, focusing on group success over individual merit, and respecting older colleagues. Tiger and Bunny tackles all of these themes. The show centers on two superheroes who are employed by the same hero company. One is a veteran burnout and the other is a cocky young hotshot. They are known respectively as Kotetsu and Barnaby. They have the same powers, but Barnaby is more agile and marketable, while Kotetsu constantly damages the city while making arrests, putting his job at risk. Over the first half of the series, Barnaby learns to respect Kotetsu's experience, dropping his initially condescending and cocky attitude. In other words, the series' first half is about a precocious, self-centered worker calming down and learning proper Japanese office etiquette. The office allegory subtext resonated with Japanese workers, but failed to hit home with Americans. However, that's not to say an office allegory doesn't work for America, considering our most popular show is literally called The Office, but it helps when the references to working life and other cultural norms are a bit more universal. One Punch Man is a great example. If you just watch the first few episodes, you'll see that Saitama is entirely devoid of passion or emotion about what he does, which sounds like depression, but as a result of capitalism. Saitama's boredom also mirrors his creators. Check out our video about One for a detailed history of One Punch Man's mangaka. Is also me, so look at me. At the end of the day, just about anyone can relate to the drudgery of a 9-to-5 or a 9-to-9, no matter where in the world they're from. Similarly, My Hero Academia found popularity by focusing on children who feel pressured to find their path and start their careers. Anyone who's ever been a teenager in Japan or abroad can understand the pressures of growing up. This cross-cultural blending of heroes is what brought us One Punch Man and My Hero Academia. Both shows draw deep inspiration from America's Cape heroes and Japan's cyborgs and Sentai. And don't forget Golden Bat, for some reason. Shout out to you, Golden Bat. These shows add their own twists to the superhero universe. For One Punch, it's satire, and for My Hero, it's those sweet shonen vibes. As anime continues its journey into the mainstream and superheroes proliferate on both sides of the Pacific, we can only expect to see more shows like One Punch and My Hero. And if you haven't already checked it out, give Tiger and Bunny a shot. I'm Yedoye. Thanks for watching Getting the Robot, your anime explainer.